Okay, I think you guys heard enough music, enough as it is. So welcome everybody. Hopefully give people enough time to join in and get settled in. I know this every 2 weeks is killing everybody. Um, if I get not necessarily the time, if I get the energy, I will probably go back to weekly. I may move back to Wednesdays. Just some thoughts I was putting out there because it seems like Friday is not the ticket. So this is episode 36. Backlash. No, this is not a WWE event, and I'm not going to be sued or anything for using the term backlash, because to say backlash is actually very popular, especially if these days, and especially in the last week or so. So it's kind of crazy how this week is gone. But first, before we do that, you thought I was going to cut to a sponsor. Now, let me take care of some admin. So make sure you guys are always on the lookout for my articles that I post opposite of when I go live on the podcast. This last week posted an article called "It's Logical Phobia," if you ask me, on my blog site at dj81.org. Basically talking about Dave Chappelle and the shenanigans surrounding his latest special called The Closer. So I urge you guys to go check that out. I definitely will share the link on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, so you guys get a chance to check it out. You can also find me on Twitter, DJ81. And if you want to support the show, and it's totally up to you, you can send any donations to my PayPal and Zelle at evo325@gmail.com. So now that we got that out the way, I always want to make sure I get the admin out the way. Let's go over what we're going to talk about. But so this week, I just mentioned about Backlash, Dave Chappelle, Jon Gruden, the Washington football team, Bruce Allen, and about pretty much the team's performance all the way through week 6. So it's a reason why I called this episode Backlash. So where do I want to begin first? Well, let's do a little icebreaker. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar with your operating systems on your computers. I know it's a weird icebreaker, but oh yeah, the other icebreaker. Hello. I totally told myself I was gonna just pop on the camera, but once you get into it, you don't really think about it so much. I'm kind of doing everything. I'm operating the different scenes. I'm marketing, I'm sharing, and I'm broadcasting. So I'm kind of jack of all trades and a master of none, apparently. So if anyone has noticed on their operating systems, you got a free upgrade to Microsoft Windows 11. And for those that have gotten a chance to work with it, what did you guys think of it? Because right now, I am loving Windows 11. And in particular, a feature that allows me to look at multiple tabs and multiple items outside those tabs on the screen simultaneously. Right now, I am looking at 2 tabs and 3 windows. It's like a little old workstation at this point. So so far, I like the sleek design to kind of soften it up, give it a little gloss. The background theme is pretty good, and it's nice thing to play with. Anyway, but if you got Windows 11, and just to let you guys know, there's a little security thing you have to do if your computer is not eligible for Windows 11 to free download, and it says you have to like enable, call it, was it TPM? You have to enable that. You have to go into your BIOS to be able to enable that, and everybody's BIOS is worded differently. So you have to go in, enable it, and then once that's enabled, then you're able to get the Windows 11 free upgrade. So that's what happened to me, and it was funny because I was just looking at an article about that, and then I got an update on my screen after I did all that, and yeah, Windows 11 is here, so I'm enjoying it. All right, so back to the Backlash. So like I said, I posted an article last week, and it was featuring Dave Chappelle and the special closer. And I kind of went over just breaking down the definitions of the words that I was going to use to break down the fact that dude is not a transphobe. It's not homophobe, it's not a transphobe. And honestly, there's nothing anyone can say otherwise to me. So, but it's kind of crazy that this is the way it has spiraled out of control, and it always does this whenever surrounding him. And the sad thing is, it's proving his point. Now, I didn't want to spend too much time on Dave Chappelle because it definitely relates to what's going on with Jon Gruden's resignation. Definitely what's going on with Sean Taylor's sudden announcement of a retirement ceremony for this coming up Sunday. And just craziness, but it's closely related more to Jon Gruden. So with Jon Gruden, he resigned from the Las Vegas Raiders. I was about to call them Oakland. The Las Vegas Raiders this past Monday during Monday Night Football, in which it was found out that through these emails that were confiscated through a prior investigation in the Washington football team. I'll turn this down because that's distracting me. But the emails that were being confiscated by the Washington football team, from the Washington football team by the NFL and stuff like that. So there were emails that were concerning to the NFL that they kept to the side, separate from the Washington football team investigation. These emails contained exchanges between Jon Gruden, Bruce Allen, NFL lawyer, one referencing Jeff Fisher, and these spanned about a good 10-year period from when he was an analyst on ESPN to maybe up until he first got the coaching job with the Raiders. I'm like, I think he's only served 2 years, so just before he became the Raiders head coach. But and these emails ranged in the form of making fun of DeMaurice Smith, who was the head of the NFLPA, comparing his nose to the Michelin Tire Man, which can be considered a racial trope. Personally, I find it funny, but I understand that it's not really funny when you were currently the NFL head coach of a premier team in the league. And I mean premier as far as prestige, history. I ain't talking about their record. But it definitely is not a good look. But here's where the problem comes in. And this is where it relates to the backlash with Dave Chappelle and how Dave Chappelle's point at the end figures in. Now, the point is that with Dave Chappelle's backlash, you're talking about, I could talk about and make fun of any other group. It doesn't matter. I can call black people the N-word. I can call white people crackers. I can call, I can make fun of short people, tall people, fat people. I can make all these jokes about politicians and whatnot. But the moment you start going into the LGBTQ whatever community, that's when it's like, oh no, we can't make fun of that. Shoot, hell, you kind of skirt into the Jewish community, but that's even scary to really make jokes about. But the moment you skate into that, that's when all of a sudden, oh, you need to be fired, you need to be canceled, and so on and so on. It's not enough that, it was a racial. So with Jon Gruden, the first thing that came up was the racial epithet about DeMaurice Smith. That amounted much to a discussion of maybe he needs sensitivity training, maybe he needs to be fined, whatever. So the next two things that popped up from these emails were some misogynistic comments and a comment about Sam's. I forgot the guy's first name, but and that's the email that was referencing Jeff Fisher. So the fact that he made a misogynistic reference, and because he had a complaint about female referees, that was part of the whole misogynistic part, and then the homophobic part was the part about Sam's, in which Fisher had drafted. So it was only after those last two things that all of a sudden, oh, he needs to be fired, he needs to be canceled, he needs to resign, he needs to do something, the NFL needs to do something, the owner of the Raiders needed to do something, and it was just outrage all over Twitter. My question is, why wasn't there like this much outrage after the first thing he did? If it was only just that first thing, he would still have his job. I care to say that if it was the first and second thing, he would have kept his job. He would have probably been suspended, but the third thing is a fireable offense. How about this? How about all of them are fireable offenses? It proves the point that Dave Chappelle said at the end. If one group is offended for something, then and that has to be taken seriously, others have to be taken seriously as well. But in Dave Chappelle's case, he's a comedian. He's there to make people laugh. That's the context of the world he lives in. He's an artist, and artists are given more free reign to work on their craft and deliver their craft. And Dave Chappelle is very good at his craft. Now, that special wasn't as good as his previous two and some of the ones he did prior in the early 2000s, but it was more of a point for point type of special to close it. So good job, Dave Chappelle. I hope you do more in the future. I know you say you probably going to go away for a little bit, which is probably good. And I know you said at the end that the next trans joke he'll make will be when everyone can laugh together, which at this rate it won't be. All of us would have been dead by now. So, but with Jon Gruden, it definitely opens up a can of worms. So it kind of leads into the Washington football team, because remember, these emails stemmed from the investigation into the sexual harassment, the workplace bullying and stuff like that was going on in the Washington football organization. They were the Washington Redskins back in up until before last year. Hence, they changed the name. They've hired Jason Wright, who is the team president, basically replacing Bruce Allen. I call Bruce Allen Bruce bitch ass Allen, because he did some shit that I didn't approve of beforehand and was never even looked at being considered to be fired until all this started coming out. So they also made the workplace more diverse. They went through the medical staff. They got a whole new medical staff. Ron Rivera is also the voice. So you have Jason Wright, Ron Rivera, who are the new voices of this franchise. So they went through this whole change and supposedly like a whole new era of Washington football. Because currently they're called the Washington football team. Well, when you have the owner who's overseen this whole thing happen for the last going on 21 years, and this is fun, it's ironic, 21 years, and I'll get to that later, but he's still here, and we still have the same shit, and it happened this week. You want to talk about backlash? I'm not even going to say I feel like, I'm not even going to say I think. At this point, it is apparent. They announced a couple of days ago, I think on Thursday, that Sean Taylor's number was going to be retired at this Sunday's game. It was announced yesterday with 3 days notice. Before then, all this shit was going on that was heading back to Washington. So let's drop a banana peel right there. Let's drop the sandwich right there in front of the monkey. So that's what took place. And the sad thing is, this team knew they were planning this, not planning to do it at the last second. They were planning this whole ceremony to take place this coming up Sunday for months. I'm like, when they retired the previous Washington deceased football players from earlier this year, they had planned that out months. As a matter of fact, they had planned both of theirs. So, and then this weekend is the alumni homecoming game. There's many forms of backlash coming from this. Number one, the primary focus is the fact that this announcement was obviously a distraction from the emails and the more news of even greater numbers of sexual harassment and even sharing of nude photos of the Washington football team cheerleaders. Poor cheerleaders. And just think, and you know what? I didn't even think about this. No wonder most of them got canned. Like suddenly. Remember when the whole team got replaced by this new squad that's in there? Some of it comprises of the old team, but wow. No wonder you let them all go. Oh, that's even worse. And I just had to think about that just now, and that's kind of crazy. So, yeah, so Bruce Allen was sharing naked pictures of the Washington football cheerleaders with Jon Gruden. And yeah, you know, Bruce is a bitch. We all know this. That's been firmly established. But apparently he's a smart man, because there's a reason why he kept his job for so long, because he's got all this dirt. He can literally just snitch on everybody. You know, all NFL's got to do is release these emails, and we're going to have Watergate all over again. So that's one way the backlash turns. Obviously, the fans are upset. They're fans that travel to these games. Not to mention the family, which I think one member of the family only knew a few days ago, versus another, like, I think the majority of Sean Taylor's family knew maybe a few days before it was announced. But the fact that Joe Gibbs didn't know, obviously the general public did not know. I'm kind of drawing a side eye towards the media, because y'all like to leak stories, and you didn't want to leak this one, but yet you kind of knew that this was coming up. And I know there's a tendency to, or not tendency, wrong word, a tendency to be, well, it's a tendency to want to be accurate in news reporting, but when you're talking about Sean Taylor and you're talking about, a retirement ceremony, I think you may want to like leak something out, what used to happen with the Washington football team when they were the Redskins. So, and fans have definitely voiced their displeasure on Twitter. I've seen on local NBC Sports. They are definitely not happy, and with all that, the team president has issued out an apology. And yes, I have transitioned into this the Sean Taylor topic, but team president Jason Wright issued an apology. He had an initial apology on Twitter, and then did one officially through his main blog. So apparently they're going to go through with this ceremony still. Some people have urged them just to delay it because it just is not the right time, especially since you announced it 3 days before the game in an obvious distraction attempt. I'm like, there's no way around it. It is a distraction attempt. Sorry. It's just, when you put out something 3 days before a football game, even though you've planned this months out in advance, but announced it after, one, your attendance is last in the league, and two, you got this investigation that's about to come back and bite y'all. Yeah, it's a distraction attempt. And the Backlash would have been handled a lot better if the team was winning. Now, they're 2-3. It's early in the season, so I'm not the panicky type. But this past game against the Saints was a doozy. So I'm going to roll into my thoughts about the team through week 6, pretty much preparing for this game against the Chiefs. Because a lot of people are saying we're going to get slaughtered. It's going to be a bloodbath. There's only going to be one Native American team standing, because there was only one Native American team entering the contest. So my thoughts of the Washington football team. Man, I wish this was alcohol. Taylor Heinicke, let's start with him. Taylor Heinicke has a lot of growing up to do, and I don't mean growing up like mature wise, because I believe he's very mature in handling the situation the way it has been. I mean, he basically was thrown to the fire day one against Tom Brady in the playoffs. Played very well, heroically. Too bad we couldn't pull it out. We could have won that game, but we didn't. And then comes in after Ryan Fitzpatrick gets hurt, in which I think Ryan is possibly coming back in the next couple of weeks, but we don't know what's going to happen with the team if they keep losing, and it looks like we're entering a tough stretch of our schedule. But Taylor Heinicke, I think he's good. I think if you keep giving him reps, if you keep giving him opportunities, he's going to do way more good than bad. Like I said, he's very mature. He already... My fault, I hit the little mic here. And now you can actually see the mic for the first time. I try to keep it out of here, but anyhow. But if you give him more repetitions, give him more starts, he gets more experience. He's old enough to where mentally he's mature. He already views preparation as number one. He learned from Tom Brady himself. They were in the same quarterback room in New England. That's how I kind of pegged that this kid was going to be the kid. Going to be our quarterback. I really didn't understand why we needed to get Ryan Fitzpatrick. I understand Ron Rivera just trusts experienced quarterbacks. That's kind of like a trait from Joe Gibbs. He didn't want to just throw a rookie or a fresh player into the fray. But I pretty much have high hopes for Taylor Heinicke. He still has ways to go. Our offensive line. I can't say enough about how well they've been doing. He's only been sacked, what, 4 or 5 times? You know, in this league where they blitz heavily, the last time I seen the offensive line do this and actually go a whole season like this was that 91 Super Bowl team. Now, not before you even, I'm not going to get ahead of myself because this is obviously not the 91 Super Bowl team. But when you got a good offensive line that's gelled together and a rookie at right tackle, which unfortunately he's going to be out for the game, that's Sam Cosmi. He's going to be out for the game this Sunday, so that's going to hurt. But that line has done a pretty good job protecting Heineke. Initially, it looked like they weren't protecting anything. That's how Fitzpatrick got hurt. But yeah, I kudos to that offensive line. Antonio Gibson. I just wish Scott Turner, and this is actually more Scott Turner than Antonio Gibson. Shoot, hell, this is actually the Scott Turner edition of my impressions, because he definitely has an effect on what they do, where they place their personnel, and what plays they run and when they run them. Scott Turner just needs to find something and kind of stick with it with only little bit of modifications here and there. I feel like I understand that each team you have to game plan differently, but you also have to find out what works at the core and then just build off of it. I feel like this team offensively doesn't really, they've not gotten past that established core phase. I feel like this team can run the ball down everybody's throat. It just seems like there's more of a priority to get Taylor Heineke going, which I don't mind, but it seems like we waste time establishing the what's going to help Taylor Heineke in the end, because he does well on play actions. He does well when he is mobile, because when he escapes out the pocket, all hell breaks loose. Now, I mean, all hell breaks loose. So Scott Turner needs to, and he's young too. So I understand that he's growing just like the players on the field are growing. So there's going to be growing pains with that being established. Now, I'm going to just lay off the offense because, like I said, this is mostly Scott Turner. Terry McLaurin is the receiver that I thought he was. I called it from day one when he spoke in an interview. And he told everybody how he views playing a receiver. I was like, that's wide receiver number 1 right there. Before he even took a snap. I was right. Because they originally had him as the gunner. I was just like, who is this cat? All of a sudden he spoke. I was like, that's wide receiver number 1 right there. Bills will tell you. I said that. I said what I said and I was right. I was right about a few other things in this community as far as gaming wise. Like availability of PS5s, but yeah, called that one too. Let's talk about the defense. But before we get to the defense, let's talk about special teams. Lay the fuck off of Dustin Hopkins. Lay off of him. The man only missed, he missed 2 extra points and a field goal. Has it cost us? No. We're the only team that puts so much emphasis on our kicker. You realize how many kickers we've driven out of Washington only for them to be successful elsewhere if they weren't at the end of their careers? Look at Graham Gano. Just look at him. He hasn't missed. Unless he missed recently, but I'm like, Graham Gano is doing just fine outside of DC. Probably the field, probably the environment. Probably people just the fact that a kicker shouldn't have to be on the field almost every second because the offense can't do what it's supposed to do, and that is get close enough to make the field goal easier or score a goddamn touchdown. But let's talk about this defense, because Jack Del Rio, what the fuck are you doing? I'm really trying to figure out why. I understand that the numbers are in your favor as far as where you're playing Landon Collins. But why at any point would you leave him back there? He obviously doesn't communicate well. I'm seeing Bobby McCain telling him, hey, you go back, I go up. He did this like motion like this. That was, as soon as I saw that hand motion, I was just like, oh yeah, he's got to get back. This dude's staring at the quarterback like a zombie, and then he drifts back like, oh, I got this. Meanwhile, there's a receiver, because what the corner knows is like, I got safety help. Not if you got Landon Collins next to you. You don't have any help. Son, you're on your own when you got Landon Collins as your backup. Because sure enough, that receiver ran straight down the field, and Landon Collins is chasing as usual. Landon Collins should not be back there covering any type of ground. He is a box safety / linebacker. And then Cam Curl's playing out of position. Already seen the Fred Smoot meme where the switch is Landon Collins, the linebacker, which he plays 60% of the snaps anyway, so that's a moot point. Curl, the strong safety, where he starred last season in that hot streak. And move Fuller, because I think he plays too soft a corner for my liking. Move him to free safety. Not saying that's going to correct all things, but you're going to have a better cover guy back there, free safety. You're going to have a better cover guy / run support guy at Seann safety. You're going to have a pure linebacker in Landon Collins where he needs to be. You don't need to, well, Bostic is gone for the year. You probably could have cut Bostic if you had forced it. And again, this is addressing Jack Del Rio, because he needs to make some shifts in that defense. He can call the same type of defense. He just needs people out there that will stick to their assignments and communicate well. And I feel like that's it. It's not an ability issue. I think it's the fact that I think there's a lack of trust between the linebacking core and the defensive backing core. Maybe initially that defensive line, because I know initially they said that line was just doing vanilla straight pass rush, in which makes them predictable. They started doing stunts in the last few games, and it's starting to get a little closer. But when I was reading the next gen stats, it's kind of sad when the nearest guy to Jameis Winston on an average was 4 yards away. I urge you guys to look at these next gen stats on NFL.com, because I'm looking at them. I'm not a guy that's really into analytics, but if you really want to gauge the pass rush, if a guy is averaging 4 yards away from the quarterback when he releases the ball, we have a problem. Oh man, I think at one point somebody else was almost at 5. Like, how's this happening? This is an average. This is not like, so you mean like maybe one time he was 3 yards away, another time he was about 6 yards away? What was he doing 6 yards away for? Was he feigning like he was covering? Was he playing contain? Like, what's going on? Now, just by mentioning the fact that the lineman can play contain, it could lead to the fact that maybe Del Rio needs to just let them loose instead of playing contain, because that was the issue with the defense prior. When they were in a 3-4, they were asking linemen and outside linebackers like Ryan Kerrigan to cover when they were pure rushers. That didn't make any sense. So I think they just need to shift some players around and work on the communication so they can execute better, because a talking team is an executable type of team. And if you have the people in the right place, that defense could be improved. But I don't know who I would have in that. I think the rookie, he's been covering very well. He had a tough cover in that first week. I think he can be the opposite corner to Jackson. Jackson just needs to continue to play physically. because they're gonna call those pass interferences on. And okay, pet peeve. This has been a long-standing problem that I've seen, not just with Washington, but defensive backs in general. Not as many as you would think. It's not very widespread because obviously the dude in Dallas, he turns and looks for the ball. But I had this issue where Washington corners do not look back for the ball. Like they do, like either they're being taught this through generations of coaches, through each iteration of coaches that have been teaching these DBs to just play the receiver, even in man-to-man situation. I'm like, even in zone, if they're covering, they're not even looking for the ball. Half the time, they could have so many interceptions. All they had to do is turn and look and just put their hands up. The ball's right there. Quarterbacks are just lobbing them in. They're like, oh, he's not going to turn around. I'll just throw it right. I'll throw it behind his head. He won't turn around. And the receiver will just moss for no reason. I'm like, oh, I can just put it right there. That's what quarterbacks are doing. And then another thing. This is the Jack Del Rio. Adjust to the goddamn quick pass and these slants. Stop playing these off coverages with just rushing four. Teams have figured out that it's just your front four and that's it. Once they and they can neutralize that with outside zone, short passes, slants, read options, anything to slow that front four down, because the linebackers aren't doing a goddamn thing right now. Got a rookie in Jamin Davis. He's not, I don't consider him a bust, but he's looking more like a project because I've seen him get trucked a few times. I've seen him be in wrong spots, but as soon as he gets it, I think he's gonna be a monster. You just gotta give him time. And unfortunately, most Washington fans don't understand that this whole team is under a rebuild. That's why you see me chilling most of the time. Now, this past week was just ridiculous. Even a team in rebuild knows to jump up for a pass on a Hail Mary. I don't tend to get angry on certain plays, but come on. And then the excuses, especially coming from Landon Collins. I'm like, he was there, so how could he say they weren't prepared for a Hail Mary when, if I remember correctly, the Saints didn't have any timeouts. It was 8 seconds left. What the fuck are they going to do in 8 seconds that's going to get them within field goal range and enough time to spike the ball to kick a field goal? Oh, I thought they were going to throw it short. What do you mean? They're going to throw it down the field. Jameis Winston's in range to just launch it, chuck down the field, which he did. He had to run around a little bit. That took some blocking on his line's part. But he got it down there and nobody jumped for it. Everybody just looked like, oh my God, he threw it. We're not prepared. Oh, it's not a short pass? Oh, we're screwed. How? I don't get it. It made absolutely no sense that happened. And that was the momentum killer and maker all at the same time, because it was going to be a tie ball game going into halftime. But you fuckers wanted to sit there and just watch the ball drop in. It wasn't even a Hail Mary. It was just a long clean bomb for a touchdown. So you guys just have to do better. But you guys going to have to strap everything in and just take it on the chin this coming up Sunday. Hopefully you guys are up for the challenge. Hopefully you guys can take all this negativity, ball it up, and beat the living shit out of the Chiefs. But more likely it's not going to happen because the Chiefs got embarrassed the other night. So they're looking to rebound. And we know we all love rebounds. And Washington just happens to be the team that teams rebound off of. So I'm looking for the Chiefs to win this ball game. But if Washington wins, so be it. That'd be nice. So yeah, it makes me sad. All right, so did have a moment of of entertainment on Twitter this week. I had an interaction with another Twitter user, and I think it was a learning lesson, but it was also a don't do that, don't do that type of moment. So, and this will lead me to the last topic, which I don't even have listed on my little script here, or skeleton, or whatever it's called, draft. But I had an interaction with another Twitter user, and I think he's the EA game changer, in which we were talking. I had talked about the fact that, okay, if Jon Gruden is going to be taken out of Madden, hopefully he gets taken out in the same amount of time that he took out Ray Rice and Colin Kaepernick. So the guy chimed in, that's not how it works. Which, okay, that's fine. You're EA game changer. You obviously know more than about the process than I do. Then, I would have liked to know what the process would have been, which more likely would have been a title update. But that's not what happened. All of a sudden, this person was just like, it's not always about race. Let me go to my Twitter feed because I have to read to you guys what I said. So let me go to... Okay, so my original tweet was, FYI, Ray Rice was dropped from Madden 15 in less than 5 days. Y'all need weeks to remove Gruden, which was announced in a note by EA Madden NFL, in which they said in the coming weeks they were going to remove Jon Gruden, and he's still in the game right now, so we're beyond that 5 days. so the user comes in. He was like, Jon Gruden lost his job like yesterday. Plus, I believe Madden only does weekly updates for things like that, which I get. So I agree with him in a way, but more to my point, I was like, so I would expect Gruden to be cut out of the game by tomorrow's roster update or next week's roster update. It's not like they have a coach AI in the game to account for the change, in which they don't have coach AI. They just have systems, which is not really coach AI. I would expect coach AI to be something like Ace, which controls timeouts, substitutions, stuff like that, which Madden doesn't really substitute according to the AI. It substitutes according to fatigue, which in-game fatigue for the umpteenth time needs to be fixed. In order for the progressive fatigue, this is another tangent. In order for progressive fatigue to work in franchise, the in-game fatigue must work on all players, not just the ones that Schneip pointed out at the beginning of the season and it's still going on. You have to hike that bitch up to 100 just to get one person to go down to like 670 or 60, because as a former football player, when you run, you expend energy. That means your stamina goes down after just running. You don't even have to be involved in the play. It was fine last year, but I digress. So this user is like, that's not how it works. The roster update was already submitted for this week, so give it till next week. Okay, which is well within line. So, and I kind of corrected him. I was like, Monday was 2 days ago, because I think he was thinking it was Tuesday. I also said that's how it worked for Ray. Let's see. I was like, that's how it worked for Ray Rice. And then he says, no, Ray Rice got suspended at the end of the week, meaning they still had time to submit it. Not everything is a race thing, man. That's when I came in, was like, nor did I say it was about race. Where did I say that? Inquiring minds would like to know. You know, I mean, we don't know each other, so I can afford to do that. So next statement comes up. He says, "You're insinuating, especially when you brought up the other people in an attempt to make a comparison. You know what you did. Did you really know?" Again, no hard feelings. I have no gripe against this person, and it's all on Twitter, so you probably can see who it is. You guys obviously are not seeing it on here, but I'm reading it word for word because I don't want to misquote anything. So, roll credits. I said, don't do that. You don't know me well enough to assume anything I said. There's a player versus coach dynamic here. Insider versus outsider dynamic. At least ask what I mean. And I think that, like, that's pretty much the crutch of the lesson that, you know, when folks interact with each other, especially when they're not familiar with each other. I'm not familiar with him. He's not familiar with me. And it was more of a, you know, folks get introduced, or there's an introduction to people where sometimes the interaction is not as good as it could be. But I like to look at interactions as, okay, well, how can we turn this around so we can both learn from it? So, and it kind of turns, the conversation kind of organically turns into something better. So it's like, a coach isn't an insider. If it was a GM or something, that would make more sense, but okay. And I said, Jon Gruden is not an insider. Well, according to those emails, he's as connected or even more connected to anyone in that league. So, and then he goes on, he was like, I'm confident that most coaches, even star players, are similarly, I can't talk right now, but similarly connected. Maybe not the 52nd man on the squad. So, but like I said, organically, the conversation, it could have gone left, but it didn't. So it swerved into don't do that, but then it was like, all right, good, we're good. So, but that first part was close and was pretty much don't do that. And I look at this conversation and like, it makes me smile, it makes me laugh, it's funny, but you know, again, I'm not the type that's like, that will like, because you know, these people, when people interact with each other and they have the conversation starts to go left, they keep it going left. I don't know this cat, so there was no reason to keep it going left. I like to correct it, and you know, or I would like for the conversation to correct itself, and it did that right there. So that was it was a good conversation overall. It was a peaceful, it started to go left, it righted itself, and as far as I'm concerned, everything was good, because I don't think we haven't talked since, but that definitely was up for a don't do that type moment, at least the first part. But overall, it was a good conversation. So, so we have made it almost to an hour, and I'm trying to figure out what else can we talk about. Oh yeah, I forgot. I was going to talk about this before. I originally was not going to talk about it. It's already been talked about, and I've already tweeted about it. Matter of fact, let me see if I can find a tweet. Because I definitely did tweet about this, because I read an article, and again, another EA exec wants to put out statistics to debate complaints, customer complaints, consumer complaints. And shout out to Kat Bailey, who wrote the article and conducted the interview. I admire your professionalism. I know you wanted to slap the shit out of him when he was doing all that. He was doing way too much. And I'm just gonna go to the tweet, because really there's not much else I could say about it that hasn't already been said. Good grief, they worked all the way up until 8:30. Who are these people? Obviously, I'm looking at my phone. So, let me find this tweet. So, if you don't mind me listening to the, if you don't mind listening to the music a little bit, I'm gonna find this tweet that I put out about said Grady. Oh, and by the way, the article that I referenced earlier called "It's Logical Phobia," if you ask me, the piece about Dave Chappelle, it is a pinned tweet on my Twitter page. So again, go to DJ81 on Twitter, and it's the pinned tweet. So you go there, check it out. Let me know what you think. I do have room for comments on there, or if you want to comment under the tweet below. So I'll definitely, matter of fact, retweet it out so you guys, hopefully you guys can see it. Now let's go. Hopefully I don't have to go. Oh, this is funny. Just one thing before we go back to Seann Grady. So going back to Dave Chappelle, referencing that all over again. So apparently 1,000 Netflix employees are reportedly planning to protest the new Dave Chappelle special. It's funny. When Cuties come out, what were those 1,000 employees planning to do? So my response to that was 1,000 pro pedos that didn't walk out on Cuties. You hate to see it. Let me see, where is it? Oh yeah, by the way, congratulations to the Caps winning their season opener. Beating the Carriages, as they should. Man, just imagine spending an off season putting together a roster just for one man, and you forget about the other one. Dummies. So let's see if I can find it. Okay, that was the EA announcement. Oh, I have murder beef with Wendy's from like years back. Speaking of which, Wendy's, they said they would guarantee their fries would be hot and crispy. Fuck that. That's not what they served me years ago after a Georgetown Providence game. Most of the fries were hot and crispy, except for that one frozen one. Fuckers. Alright, where is this tweet? Ah, here we go. Oh, it was one of several tweets I think I did. Oh, okay. So here's the tweet that I put out. So I said God damn it. This thing needs to get out of my way. I'm about to elbow the fuck out of it. Get out of my way. The data shows, quote from an EA Madden exec. I'm sick right now. Fuck this game. That was the tweet. And let me see. And then my other tweet, and I retweeted the article that was posted. I said, I read this and was floored by it, mostly laughing hysterically. Shout out to the Cat Bailey, for remaining calm while conducting this interview. And I matter of fact, we're just gonna go to it. I said I wasn't gonna say anymore, but I need to. I can't help it. Because this is pure, this is fuckery at its finest. Pure fuckery. Now, Smitty had already pointed out the first sentence in Seann Grady's answer, and I have to agree. Let's see. Make sure I find. I just want to look this up real quick. Okay, so just for those that didn't tune in to the Sim Standard last night, this was the question that Smitty first referenced. So Kat asked Seann Grady, who's the executive producer of, I think creative executive producer, I hopefully got the title right, of Madden NFL football. And I think this was our second question. So she asks, when it launched, talking about Madden 22, was quite buggy even by most generous standards. I'm curious what led to Madden having these issues at launch. Now, we all know we were dealing with issues left and right. It wasn't. So, we go to the first. Okay, so Seann Grady responds, well, I debated a little bit quite buggy. He multiplied that downplay. Wow. There were certainly bugs, and I can tell you I'm frustrated. Well, if there weren't that many bugs, then why are you frustrated? You weren't frustrated with that money. Anyway, I'm playing in an online franchise with 7 other team members as well. Yeah, right. There was a bug that we hit related to the head-to-head games, which everybody reported. That was a huge bug. And that has since been addressed. Yeah, it has. But that's frustrating as a consumer for me as well. You're not a consumer. You're a consumer of my money. That's what you're a consumer of. You're not a consumer of the game. You can't even look at it from a consumer standpoint. Consume my money, bitch. Jeez. So anything that gets out there is frustrating for us, and I think we've done a good job listening to players and reacting as fast as we can to the most painful issues, which would be which actually should be in-game fatigue and season overall progressive fatigue as well, because fatigue doesn't just suddenly hit in week 13. I don't know how often I'm gonna keep saying that. So the reason why I say that I debate a little bit of bugginess is that on social media, yeah, go ahead, blame social media for the reason why your game came out buggy, and everybody could connect and relate to that experience because they experienced the same bugs. That's why Angry Joe does his rants on Madden every single year, because it is not social media's fault that your game came out buggy. If your game didn't come out buggy and someone started lying on it, I can understand that. But they weren't lying. You mean to tell me that just because it wasn't a large enough group that you can debate it was quite buggy? A bug is a bug, is it not? Says you can post the bug once or twice from a couple. No, it wasn't a couple, Sean. Get the fuck out of here. It was many people posted about this, and they shared their own experiences. And it feels like it's happening for everyone. It looks like you realize how long this answer is. That's the biggest problem with this answer. This thing is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, like 3 paragraphs long. We writing a report, a thesis on debating whether it was a bug, or whether the launch was quite buggy. It was. It is a fact that this game was buggy. That's why she asked you the goddamn question, Sean. Jeez. I'm starting to turn into Angry Joe for a little bit. My little Angry Joe about to come out. But then he continues, because Kat responds, I'm glad she held her ground. She already smacked the shit out of this dude, but she held her ground. Shout out to Kat, being professional. She says, I think from the viewpoint of a lot of people, which it was, myself included. See, that's what I'm saying. Good one, Kat. Defensive coverage in particular was quite broken at launch. You already said that you pushed an update almost immediately to try to start it. This was a nut-cracking response question, follow-up question. This one hurt Sean, because, let me finish that question and start addressing some of that. I'm just curious how the game can launch with that serious of a problem with defense, a fundamental issue with the game. Now, Sim Standard, they pointed this out too. But my take on it, wow, that follow up, that was a fatality. I'm sorry. I'm like, how do you have a 3-paragraph response in debating whether something was buggy and not expect a follow up? I'm sure going in interviews, everybody expects a follow up question, but I don't think he was expecting the follow up question to be that. But like, look, it was buggy, and defense was the main thing. Well, I like to debate whether something's quite buggy. And then hold up, here we go. Another 3 paragraphs in response to that. I think, again, I have to challenge that it's completely broken, because broken sounds like you can't call any... I'm past an hour now, and the fuckery is just still going. This is when it gets good. Strap in. The data within our game would say that the amount of passing on average per game was about same year over year. The number of interceptions in the game was actually slightly up year over year. What we find is that our most competitive players know how to really dive into the playbooks, dive deep into pre-play adjustments, and figure out matchups that can exploit a coverage. In some cases, it is a problem with an assignment on specific zone coverages, and those are the types of things that we look to address as fast as possible. This is the third and final paragraph of this response. Like I said, we did probably the most important one right at worldwide launch back in August. It's October right now. And we continue to tune other ones, but for the vast majority of our players, it's not broken. I beg to differ, but anyway, most of them don't hit that or feel that. And again, it doesn't make it any less important. Then why are you spending like 3 paragraphs each question, the main question, the follow-up? You're spending a thesis on each to defend a game being buggy at launch. So I'm almost at the finish line. So, and again, it doesn't make it any less important, blah, 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 blah. But again, we would say that the way the game plays out overall, there are other defensive coverages that are... Really? That's like dude that was like, well, if you don't want DRM in Xbox One, there's Xbox 360, or I don't know if it was like game sharing or whatever it was. He was like, well, we have Xbox 360. You know what happened then? Xbox One at launch. There's other ways to adjust to one specific defensive assignment on some specific zone coverages. First of all, I don't know why there's not an ability to, when you flip a defense, a coverage, to have players run completely across the field to be in their assignment, which the CPU or another player could snap the ball at this point. That's an exploit. That's been there for ages. You haven't figured that one out? You say you play the game. Oh, I'm sorry. You must not call coverage audible swaps because you do the auto. I challenge the notion that some of these devs are playing this game. I definitely challenge the notion, because if they were playing this game, they would have noticed that the in-game fatigue is not working properly, or it's not they may think it's working as intended because they're not even looking at it. But I digress. I'm gonna get off of this. But this was the ridiculousness that came out of Twitter just overall, this produced Backlash as well. So Twitter can be a wonderful place. According to Dave Chappelle, it's not a real place. So, and that's the way I kind of view it. I kind of have fun with Twitter. You know, I have all the fun I can have. All right, so another week, well, another 2 weeks, I'll be back with episode 37. Oh, this season is wrapping up. It couldn't come fast enough. It's about to wrap up by 40. The show may wrap up by 40 if I don't get any support. So I may move back to Wednesdays just to see if people, I guess people like the Wednesdays better than Fridays, because producing this show on Fridays has really been hell. I clearly chose the wrong day. I think also going every 2 weeks is probably killing me too, but there's a reason I'm going every 2 weeks. So I had to stick with that. I had to live with that. But yeah. So that's it for episode 35. Actually, no, this is episode 36. L. Alright, so that's it for episode 36. It was nice to get this done, and it was nice to actually get in front of the camera again, because like I said, you know, I've been doing a lot of behind the scenes episodes, and now I'm out in front. So hopefully I see some more interaction, I see some more, you know, participation, and just we'll see what happens. But the show is pretty much almost at the finish line. Other than that, you guys take care, have a good evening, and check me out on Spotify. I am on there. I have season, I can't even remember. I have season 3, and leading up to when this episode gets uploaded, we'll have the beginning or all the way up to episode 36 of season 4. So on that note, guys, have a good evening, have a good night. Whenever you're viewing this, have a good day. Wherever you're viewing this, whether it be Australia, whether it be California, whether it be China, North Korea, South Korea, France, Italy, England, more than likely it'll be England or Germany, Egypt, Japan, New Zealand, New Guinea, Hawaii, Alaska. I can name a whole bunch of them. They're just like rattled in my head. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, South Africa, Nigeria, Ethiopia. Anyway, guys, take care. Peace.